Azure Cost Optimization for Startups Under $10,000 per month. Hi there. Today we'll talk about Azure Cost Optimization for Startups Under $10,000 per month. We'll cover everything you need to know about Azure Cost Optimization for Startups. So, let's get started. Why Azure Cloud costs spiral past $10,000 for startups? Most startups don't have a spending problem. They have a visibility problem. Azure charges for compute, storage, networking, and dozens of managed services in a way that makes it genuinely hard to trace a cost spike back to its source without the right setup. 3 patterns push startup Azure bills past $10,000 unnecessarily. Oversized VMs running 24/7, a D4S_V3 instance costs roughly $140 per month at pay-as-you-go rates. If you're running 5 of them at 15% average CPU utilization, you're burning $700 per month on headroom you never use. Forgotten test environments, developers spin up resources for a sprint, ship the feature, and move on. The resources stay running. No commitment discounts, pay-as-you-go pricing is Azure's most expensive tier. It's designed for unpredictable, bursty workloads. If your startup has any predictable baseline usage, you're overpaying. According to Microsoft's Azure Cost Management documentation, organizations that implement basic cost governance practices reduce cloud spend by 20 to 30% in the first 90 days. For a startup at $10,000 per month, that's $2,000 to $3,000 back every single month. Azure Cost Optimization for Startups, right-sizing virtual machines first. Right-sizing is the fastest win in Azure Cost Optimization for Startups, and it almost never requires a performance trade-off in practice. The honest answer is that most startups over-provision at launch because uncertainty feels expensive. You pick a D4S_V3 just in case traffic spikes. But traffic doesn't spike. 6 months later, you're running a server at 12% CPU utilization and paying for the other 88%. How to find over-provisioned VMs? Azure Monitor gives you CPU, memory, and network utilization data going back 30 days at no extra cost. The process. Open Azure Monitor metrics and filter by your VM resources. Set the time range to 30 days and look at average CPU utilization. Any VM averaging below 20% CPU is a right-sizing candidate. Check Azure Advisor, covered below, for automated resize recommendations. A D4S_V3, for vCPUs, 16 GB RAM, runs at $140 per month pay-as-you-go. Downsizing to a D2S_V3, 2 vCPUs, 8 GB RAM, costs $70 per month. If the workload fits, you've cut that resources cost in half with a single resize. Dev/test VMs that run overnight. Dev environments don't need to run 24/7. Azure DevTest Labs and Azure Automation both support scheduled start/stop for VMs. Turning off dev VMs for 14 hours per day, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., reduces compute costs for those instances by 58%. On a $500 per month dev environment, that's $290 saved without any code changes or workflow disruption. For more detail on how Azure's VM pricing tiers affect startup budgets, Azure Cost Optimization, SMB Savings Strategies breaks down the cost structure across compute tiers with real numbers. Reserved instances versus Azure Savings Plans, which one saves more? This is the comparison most startup guides skip, and it matters. Reserved instances, RIs, and Azure Savings Plans both offer discounts in exchange for a 1-year or 3-year commitment, but they work differently and the right choice depends on your workload. Reserved instances. Azure Savings Plans discount versus pay-as-you-go up to 72%, 1 year, up to 80%, 3 year, up to 65%, 1 year, up to 66%, 3 year. Flexibility tied to specific VM size/region applies across compute services automatically. Best for stable, predictable VM workloads. Mixed or revolving compute footprints. Scope. Single subscription or shared. Single subscription or shared can be exchanged. Yes. For newer VM generations, no exchange. Commitment runs to term if your startup runs the same VM sizes consistently. Reserved instances give you a bigger discount. If your compute mix shifts month to month because you're scaling, migrating services, or experimenting, Azure Savings Plans are safer because they apply automatically across eligible compute. A startup spending $3,000 per month on compute at pay-as-you-go rates could pay $840 to $900 per month with a 3-year reserved instance on predictable workloads. That's roughly $25,000 saved over 3 years on a single commitment decision. For a detailed breakdown of how reserved instances apply in startup scenarios, reduce cloud costs by 40% with Azure Reserved Instances walks through the math with real VM examples and cost comparisons. How to set Azure budget alerts before costs surprise you. Budget alerts are one of the simplest things in Azure and one of the most commonly skipped by early-stage startups. You can set one up in under 10 minutes. Setting up an Azure budget alert in the Azure portal, go to Cost Management plus Billing Budgets, click plus Add and choose your subscription or resource group scope. Set your monthly budget amount to your target spend, not your current spend. Add alert conditions: 80% of budget, 100% of budget, and 110% actual overage. Enter email addresses for notifications, including your technical lead and whoever owns the finance relationship. A few things worth knowing. Azure budget alerts notify you but don't stop spending. You need Azure policy or manual action to halt runaway costs. Set alerts at the resource group level if different teams own different parts of the infrastructure. This makes cost accountability clear without finger pointing. For step-by-step field documentation, Microsoft's budget creation tutorial covers every option in the form. The goal is to eliminate billing surprises, not micromanage every dollar. An 80% alert gives you time to investigate before you breach your target. The 110% actual alert means something has already gone wrong and needs immediate attention. Azure Advisor, the free cost optimization tool most startups miss. Azure Advisor is a built-in recommendation engine that analyzes your actual usage and surfaces specific, actionable suggestions. It's free, requires no setup, and most startups either don't know it exists or check it once and forget about it. Advisor covers 5 categories: cost, security, reliability, performance, and operational excellence. For cloud cost management on Azure, the Cost tab is the one that matters most. What Advisor actually flags: VMs with low CPU utilization over 14 days, with specific resize or shutdown recommendations. Unattached managed disks costing money with nothing attached to them. Reserved instance coverage gaps where you're paying pay-as-you-go on predictable workloads. Idle public IP addresses that still incur charges. App service plans running with no apps deployed in a real startup environment. A single Advisor review often surfaces $300 to $800 in monthly savings across these categories. The recommendations are specific to your account, not generic advice. Each one shows an estimated monthly savings figure so you can prioritize by dollar impact. To check your recommendations, Azure Portal Advisor Cost. For guidance on pairing Advisor with broader security practices, Azure Cloud Security for SMBs, 7 Proven Practices covers how to use Advisor security and cost recommendations together without creating technical debt. Azure Cost Optimization Checklist for startups under $10,000 per month. This is the practical output most guides don't provide, a sequenced checklist you can hand to a developer or technical founder and get real results from in one sprint. Quick wins, under 2 hours each. Enable Azure Advisor and review all cost recommendations. Identify and delete unattached managed disks. Delete unused public IP addresses. Set budget alerts at 80%, 100%, and 110% of monthly target. Enable auto shutdown on all dev/test VMs, 6 p.m. daily. Check for empty app service plans and resource groups. Medium effort, 1 to 2 days each. Pull 30-day CPU/memory utilization from Azure Monitor for all VMs. Downsize any VM averaging below 20% CPU utilization. Audit storage accounts and move cold data to cool or archive tier. Review Azure App Service scaling settings, manual versus autoscale. Check log analytics. Workspace data retention settings. Default is 30 days, reduce if not needed. Strategic, 1 to 2 weeks. High ROI. Calculate compute baseline and buy reserved instances or savings plans for predictable workloads. Implement Azure policy to block oversized VM deployments in non-production environments. Tag all resources by team and project for cost accountability. Review all managed services for lower cost alternatives. If your startup is also building internal tools or workflows, low-code app development. What startups must know in 2026 covers how Power Platform can reduce compute costs by shifting logic off Azure VMs and into serverless, consumption-based services. Azure cost management tools worth using in 2025. Beyond Azure Advisor and the built-in cost management portal, a few other tools are worth knowing. Native Azure tools. Azure Cost Analysis, inside Cost Management plus Billing, lets you slice spending by resource, resource group, tag, location, and service type. The group by feature is the most useful part. group by service to find which Azure product is driving the bill, then group by resource to find the specific instance. Azure Cost Exports lets you pipe your cost data into a storage account or Power BI for custom reporting. If your CFO or investors want visibility into cloud spend trends, this is how you build a clean dashboard. Power BI for SMBs. Turn raw data into insights shows how to connect this data to a Power BI dashboard that non-technical stakeholders can actually read and act on. Third-party options. Cloudability by Apptio and Cloud Health by VMware are the two most widely used third-party cloud cost management platforms. Both offer multi-cloud visibility and more advanced allocation features than native Azure tools. The honest trade-off: native tools are free and good enough for most startups under $10,000 per month. Third-party tools save time at scale but cost $200 to $500 per month themselves, which only makes sense once you're managing $30,000 or more in monthly cloud spend and have multiple teams with separate budgets. Conclusion: Azure cost optimization for startups under $10,000 per month is not a one-time project. It's a quarterly habit. The most effective teams run a review every 90 days, check advisor, pull utilization data, confirm commitment discounts still match actual usage, and clean up anything that accumulated over the quarter. The specific moves in this guide, right-sizing VMs, setting budget alerts, buying reserved instances or savings plans for predictable workloads, and running Azure Advisor regularly, can realistically reduce a $10,000 per month Azure bill by $2,000 to $4,000 without any performance trade-offs. That's enough to fund 3 months of additional runway or cover a part-time developer. If you're looking for additional savings strategies beyond the fundamentals here, 7 Azure Cost Optimization Tips for Startups in 2026 covers tactics that go further. For startups ready to formalize their cloud governance with expert support, reach out to explore how a structured Azure cost review works in practice.